Greetings everyone. Welcome to the presentation of the ultimate unification theory. It is the scientific breakthrough that unites science and spirituality. The topic sounds very heavy and a little bit scary probably. So I think I need to make some statement before we start. So first, I'm not a super genius and I do not pretend to be more intelligent than Albert Einstein. I'm just a humble engineer with an average intelligence and a bad memory. And the ultimate unification theory is also not my invention. It has been there all the time, waiting to be understood. What I did is actually just connect few important dots, and I was even guided to find those dots and how to connect them. It all comes to me in an epiphany in 1988 while I was watching beautiful sunset at Seminyak Beach in Bali. So if I share all those dots and show you how to connect them, I think everyone with an average intelligence can get the picture too. So let's start. The first thought, going back to the establishments of science back in the 16th, 17th century. So in those days, there's a lot of great souls coming onto this planet and establish all the method and procedures how to investigate the natural law, what we call science. So the scientific method established at that time is to search for underlying principle or the law of nature governing a lot of happenings with as small a number of rules as possible. As an example is the Newtonian law of movement. It is F equal m by a, force equal mass by acceleration. That simple law underlies all movement in this world, from an apple coming or falling off the tree up to satellites orbiting the Earth. That was the first dot. The second is actually at the turn between 19th to the 20th century. Faraday discovered the electromagnetic fields, and Albert Einstein come up with the special and general relativity theory, and as well as quantum mechanics. So these are beyond the Newtonian border. So how to unite all those? At the beginning of the 20th century, we have the new physics, where matter is regarded as being constituted by region of space in which the field is very intense. There is no place in this new kind of physics, both for the field and the matter, for the field is the only reality. So Albert Einstein came up with the famous, also simple formula, E equal mc squared. And that formula is saying that mass is nothing but the condensed energy. So once we resolve the issues between fields and matter, we have another issue, is the quantum entanglement. So Einstein with his colleagues Podolsky and Rosen wrote a paper called the EPR paradox in 1935. That is the paradox between quantum and relativity theory. Quantum says, if two complementary particles traveling at the speed of light in opposite direction, if particle at A is deflected to the right, its complementary particle at B will turn left to complement its pair. This happens even if A and B at the opposite side of the universe. And physicists couldn't accept this. It is like a spooky action at a distance, or they call it the non-locality phenomena. The question is actually, in relativity theory, how can those particles communicate to each other? Since according to relativity theory, nothing, not even information, can travel at the speed of light. So that thought experiment from Einstein and John Stuart Bell in 1964 created or proposed a real experiments to test the validity of quantum theory. So there are many experiments has been done, like there are this list here 10, and the last one is just last year. Physicists or scientists think there must be a loophole. That's why all this experiments has been done, and they're true. They all confirm that those particles are still communicating to each other. And the loophole is actually in our mind. The relativity theory shows that time and space are relative to our system of reference. They are so relative that if we use the movement at the speed of light as our system of reference, time and space become insignificant. Consequently, speed as a dimension of space over time, like kilometer per hour, also becomes irrelevant. So the next dot that we connect is particle accelerator. Do we know why we need to accelerate particle? To accelerate particle to make it more easily detectable. The basic of this is the gamma factor. The gamma factor is basic principle of any experiments using particle accelerator. To make them easier detectable, particle are accelerated close to the speed of light. At that speed, their clock slows down and their mass grows. They become bigger and live longer. The only limitation is that they can't be accelerated to the 100% of c at the speed of light. Close to the speed of light, the energy we pump is converted into mass. The rigidity of this gamma factor created another paradox, what is known as the twin paradox. If one of the twin travels at 90% of the speed of light, where gamma factor is 2.3, his clock ticks 2.3 times slower than his twins on Earth. After 10 years of traveling, his twin on Earth has aged 23 years, so 13 years older than him. And he will also pass Alpha Centauri, which is 4.3 light years away, in less than 2 hours, in less than 2 years. So he will feel as if he is traveling twice as fast as the speed of light. To his condition, the universe has shrunk to half of its original size. At 100% c, at the speed of light, gamma is infinite. His clock will stop and space shrink into nothing. He can cross the whole universe in no time or instantaneous. However, this is hypothetical, since only massless particle, in example photon, can reach the speed of light. So at the movement of the speed of light, for a light particle that moves at the speed of light, its clock stops and space shrinks into nothing. Hence, photon or light particles does not age and is everywhere at the same time. Two complementary particles that appear to us as if they travel at the speed of light in opposite directions are in fact do not move at all. They are still together, indivisible. The universe is to us as what it is only because we are as what we are. Time-space continuum as we perceive it exists in our mind only because the interaction between our senses and its surrounding gives our mind those impressions. It is real only as far as our physical senses are concerned. So with this conclusion, we can unite relativity and quantum. If Einstein had only pushed his relativity theory to the farthest end and applied the movement at the speed of light as his frame of reference, he wouldn't wasted his time arguing with Niels Bohr, but realized that the true and eternal reality is the reality at the speed of light, or the reality of light, where time stops, therefore patterns cease to be cyclic, periodic or time-dependent, and space shrinks, hence separateness ceases to exist. Time, space, and the whole universe become singularity, the absolute infinite oneness. So once we unify relativity and quantum, we come to newer physics, and we can confirm the Bell theory that says the universe is not a collection of objects, but is an inseparable web of vibrating energy patterns in which no one component has reality independently from the entirety. Included in the entirety is the observer. So that's state of the art of physics. With that statement, we come to realize the law of one. So, as a consequence, we have also to change our paradigm. The old Newtonian atomistic and matter-based paradigm is no longer valid. We should start thinking in the new paradigm of inseparable web of vibrating energy patterns. So, how is this new paradigm? The new paradigm is based on the reality of light. You see also on the left-hand side is the oneness as the white light, and through the prism on the other side it comes as dispersed, polarized, individualized, but still inseparable. Also, light is electromagnetic wave, and yes, we can see all the spectrum. The visible light is very, very narrow. It's also from the power line, radio waves, mobile phones, up to the camera. Let's imagine if our eyes is sensitive to the X-ray range of light. How are you going to see all around you? We will see all the skeletons walking around. So, this is light or electromagnetic waves traveling at a speed around 300,000 kilometers per second. There is another frequencies we're talking about is the sound frequency, sonic frequency, and we can only listen or sensitive to 20 to 20,000 cycle per second, and this sound wave traveling much slower than light is only 343 meters per second. So if you see the light, a thunder, then a few seconds after that you hear it. So the sound travels much slower. So now the scientific breakthrough we're talking about is by turning around the system of reference. So actually there is no point in space that can be considered as 100% stationary to be used as a point of reference. Look, for example, if I walk on the train, I walk at a speed of 5 kilometers per hour on the train that travel about 80 kilometers per hour. My speed measured to the earth is either 75 or 85 kilometers per hour, depending which direction I walk. But how is my speed and how is my speed measured from the sun or the center from galaxy? That's why there is all space is relative. This is the Galilean relativity theory, the old one. So there is no point in space that's 100% stationary, whereas the speed of light is always constant and equal c, irrespective how we measure it. Even from the car speeding at 90% of the speed of light, if he turns on the light's coming out from that bulb always still the speed of light. So instead of using any arbitrary point in space as reference, why don't we use the speed of light or the condition of light as our system of reference? This is similar as putting the sun in the middle instead of the earth and change the geocentric system into heliocentric system. So the future of science, by turning around this reference, we always take for granted and never really ask ourselves whether our four-dimensional time-space continuum or our reality is truly real. Similarly, we didn't ask ourselves for millennia whether the sky really rotates around our globe. Even Einstein was caught up in our reality and could not agree with Niels Bohr about quantum uncertainty principle and the indivisibility of quantum reality. Taking the reality of light as our system of reference, we would not speak of speed anymore, but degree of confinement instead. Light can be considered as free energy, while mass or matter is confined energy known as the condensed energy. So let's see, if we're talking about degree of confinement and densities, you can see from light that where we have this wave and particle dualism, and then little bit denser we got the subatomic particle, and then atomic elements and the crystal. So up where the particle wave is, we have the implicate order, or we got now the quantum fields. That's the reality of light. While down here we got the explicate order. We can also see that the top is like light, is free energy, and then sound is more dense, the gas, the liquids, and the solids. On the right hand side, we see the other one. There's the mineral, the vegetation, the animals, the mammals, and the humans. So it looks like degree of confinement with the densities. You started in the left hand side going down like the involution phase. And from the bottom, the mineral kingdom, you got the evolution phase. Starting from the mineral, vegetation, animals, mammals, human. And also humans also given the senses in every densities, like sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. So this is, we come back to this later. We're going to talk about spirituality now. That's next big dot to contact. So since I was born in the theosophical family, so it's obvious for me to start everything with the secret doctrine of H.P. Blavatsky. It's a big 2 volumes of books. The volume 1 is Cosmogenesis, and volume 2 is Anthropogenesis. There are 2 books that big. But like I said, I don't have much of a memory capability, so I cannot remember all what is in the secret doctrine. So, but I found out that the skeleton of the secret doctrine is the stanzas of John. There are 7 stanzas about cosmogenesis and the 12 stanzas about anthropogenesis. The stanzas of Jian is originally written in Sansa, and people believe that it's coming from the Atlantean era. There is many interpretation of these stanzas of Jian. For that, like the Purunas in India, is also the interpretation of that. The Tibetan book of QT, also the ancient Hebrew document Sefer Yetzirah, also the sacred volume of the Egyptian thought Hermes. So that stanza of Jian is old, very old, but the stanza of Jian also coming from something else. That's the most ancient manuscript, that the ancient palm leaves. And this believed to be the most ancient manuscript on planet, even older than humanity or our species. They contain highly magnetized symbols, and the interpretation is left to our ability to resonate. So one of the interpretation of the stanza of Jian, and then further interpreted to all these books. Now the essence of everything, back to the most ancient, is the ancient palm leaves. This is written in the poem of the Secret Doctrine. It's an archaic manuscript of collection of palm leaves made impermeable to water, fire, and air by some specific unknown process. It's before writer's eye. That's Blavatsky's. On the first page is an immaculate white disc with a dull background. On the following page, the same disc but with a center point. The third stage, the point is transformed into a diameter, and when the diameter line is crossed by a vertical one, it becomes the Mandan cross. So this is the formula of the ultimate unification theory. It's not my invention. It is the source of all the spiritual teaching. And it depends on how we can resonate to these four palm leaves. It's up to us. To me, in 1988, these four palm leaves give me the understanding of the whole cosmos. And when I try to explain using words or language, I got stuck because I cannot use the language. Because language, you use words, and when you use words, you put a label on it. Once you put a label, you limit the interpretation of it. So what I'm going to do the next is actually just give you a prompt, a few words, but don't stick to my words, but try to turn on your intuitive faculty and try to encourage you to use the right brain way of thinking. So the first, the law of one. On the first page is an immaculate white disc with a dull background. So I try to give you some words. The circle symbolizes the source, the absolute oneness, infinite, boundless, without beginning nor end. The void, the zero, the nothing that is everything. The source, the creator, or whatever. Try to use your own words to understand this. Don't stick to my word. This is limiting. So on the following page, the same disc, but with the center point. This is given to me as the law of polarization. It's the first, the appearance of the center point symbolizes the first polarization, the point of awareness within, the source becoming aware of itself. Now in third stage, the point is transformed into a diameter. The diameter polarizing the circle into the upper half, like the Li, heaven, young, masculine spirit, the world of no form or arupa, beyond time, space, the blueprint, the principle, the archetypes, or the causal, or the implicate order. And the lower half, the chi, virgin energy. Virgin energy means has the potential to become energy. Earth, yin, matter. The world of form with rupa, within time-space continuum, the manifestation, the explicate order. And then when the diameter line is crossed by a vertical one, I, it becomes the mundane cross. This is the symbol of creation. The heaven, yang or li, impregnated the mundane egg, the world or the yin, chi. Let there be light, or the spirit manifested into matter, or the implicate order unfolded into the explicate order. So there are some words. Probably try to understand, try to relate with your own ability to resonate. Don't stick to mine. I can only add a little bit more. The interaction between spirit and matter, symbolized by this vertical axis, also creates consciousness. At the same time, it's also polarized the one into subject and object, the surrounding. So we come to the exoteric axis, the vertical axis, symbolizes the interaction between spirit and matter polarity. It symbolizes the subject pattern that can be anything from a simple pattern as light particle, a photon, to a complex pattern as human, to a galaxy or super universe. The interaction between spirit and matter creates consciousness within the subject pattern. The degree of consciousness directly relates to the complexity of the subject pattern. The law of polarization is also known as the universal law of free will. It's of your free will to become a human, your free will to become a galaxy, a free will to become a universe, or also a free will to become an animal, a free will to become a photon. But at the human level, metaphorically, we can consider it is as choosing a certain color of hat that we are wearing to experience our surrounding. Like wearing a gray colored hat, we will see the glass as half empty, while wearing a rose colored hat, we will see the glass as half full. Now, we're talking about the exoteric axis. It's the horizontal line, symbolizes the interaction between the subject pattern, the I, and the surrounding, the object. Due to the principle of resonance and induction, whatever the subject can perceive from the surrounding solely depends on the subject pattern itself. For example, our eyes can only perceive a certain bandwidth of light from infrared to limited to infrared to ultraviolet. Our ears can only perceive a certain bandwidth of sound, 20 to 20 kilohertz. Also, like we said, wearing a gray colored hat, we see the glass is half empty, while wearing a rose colored hat, the glass is half full, etc. It is possible and even highly probable that there are many other universes sharing our space without us being aware of them, simply because they are vibrating beyond our resonant bandwidth. The universe is to us as what it is only because we are as what we are. The principle of resonance and induction. The principle of resonance induction postulates that interaction between patterns can only occur if they correspond to each other within a certain resonance bandwidth. While resonating, the induction principle underlies the interaction between the polarities, changing and modifying the pattern. This induction principle, in turn, is fundamental cause of universal evolution. Like, for example, when I was little, I don't speak English. My resonance to English language is only limited to the noise. I don't understand. So when I learn the English language, I do an induction in my thinking pattern how to speak English. Once I've got that pattern in my brain, in my system, I can resonate more and I can understand English. So that is also the induction, resonance also create the evolution or progress or whatever. So the vertical axis, you can see of the galaxy formation as a artist impression. We don't see that. Also, like Esther and Jerry Hicks, Abraham teaching using the vortex, and also like Foster Gamble with the torus, and also the Anu. You can see also in the middle is supposed to be the vortex or the vertical axis. So consciousness is spirit-matter interaction. There's a range of spectrum between spirit and matter. We have the subconsciousness, consciousness, and unconsciousness. The consciousness is where we focus our awareness center point. Is mental, emotional, physical. So this is probably the first definition of consciousness beyond everything else. I never heard that before. So when we go into the axis, the vertical axis, I'm an electrical engineer, so I can make a model of this human superimposed energy circuits. So we get the vertical, the physical senses, the extra emotional, mental, and spiritual. On the left-hand side, we have all the memory, and on the other side, the right-hand side, all the senses. So every circle supposed to be, or ideally, resonate to the next, and the next. Once all the circuits are in resonance, we have all the energy, the interaction between spirit and matter smoothly. Once we have something unsynchronized in that, out of sync, we call it, then the energy will be trapped, either in physical, we got physical disease, or sick, emotional, we got sad, then trauma, or mental, we got depressed. But that's how we can also do the healing. That's also how we do the meditation. The meditation is also to try to synchronize all our patterns. Now we come back also to that degree of confinement. So we can see also the mineral, vegetation, animals, mammals. On the left-hand side, we got the physics, right from bottom up. When we reach wave and photon, wave particle dualism, we got a little bit confused. And on the right-hand side, we got probably the biologist, talking about physics, organics. Right? And up there, we have the emotional, mental, we're talking about psychologists. And the whole thing, with on top of it, we can consider this as the lower part of the circle. The upper part of the circle is the reality of light, the implicate order, the quantum field, or whatever you call it. That is the area that we still have to investigate. So, as a summary, the formula is the law of one, the law of polarization, and the law of interaction based on resonance and induction principle. And the philosophical summary is every I is the same I, which is the cosmic I. The only difference is the subject pattern held as a point of reference to experience other patterns, the object. Due to subject-object polarization, the subject pattern identifies itself as I am, having the impression of being separated from the rest of the cosmos, which is its illusion. So basically, in one sentence, the source is experiencing itself through that center point, the point of awareness, through us as infinite number of subjects having an infinite number of experience. So I haven't told you anything actually. I only give you the formula. Just work on that formula and try to interpret as far as you can yourself. Thank you very much.